Thank you very, very much, Hans, and welcome all from our side one more time. And to our agenda, we now have a very insightful and experienced speaker when it comes to e-commerce in the fashion and luxury sector. The COVID crisis has seen both big and small retailers completely rethink their reliance on physical outlets and pivot to online platforms and delivery models almost overnight. And when it comes to brands that we wanted to advise us on how to do this and how to develop a platform, an online platform that will be maybe even stronger than physical brick and mortar sales, we chose Farfetch. It's a British-Portuguese online luxury fashion retail platform. It's been working across the world for almost more than a decade. But what is interesting about Farfetch is that it's really in a battle when it comes to online sales, because recent research has shown that brick and mortar still accounts for 88% of the luxury retail sales globally. So anybody launching and leading an online platform in this particular sector has a lot of experience and insights and advice for all those maybe smaller brands and anybody going online and trying to increase sales online when it comes to brick and mortar shops. And for that, we are honored to have with us today Edward Sabbagh, Managing Director of Middle East Farfetch, who is in charge of the overall development of the Farfetch brand and business in the Middle East. It has so far included overseeing the launches of Farfetch Arabic site and app, as well as its first local office in the region and a lot more. Thank you, Edward, for joining us today.
Thank you, Mara, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for your team. I know it's been quite a busy time for you. So, and it's interesting really to have you tell us how to basically develop e-commerce in the luxury sector, exactly because that sector is so reliant on brick and mortar sales. So let's go back to March 2020 and the first impact, or maybe a little bit earlier, depending when you felt it, and the very first impact of the COVID-19 crisis and how Farfetch, the first lessons maybe from that initial period.
Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, what did not get impacted in March, right? I think, obviously, first of all, nobody was expecting what was going to happen. First and foremost, I think the first, just like probably any other company, our priority was the people. So without even getting into the business, and our people are not necessarily, our employees is one, the people that we have in the warehouses, in the studio, but also our partners. As you know, Farfetch.com is a marketplace that connects, brands and boutiques around the world to consumers around the world, and our partners, our boutique partners, are just as much as our customers. So there was that, and obviously the end consumer, the person who was shopping fashion. So it was lots of work to do. Obviously people were very worried and all this at the time, and it was very important to give them this level of comfort and to also safeguard the health and safety of everybody across the whole value chain. Now, what really changed in the industry, I think many things. I think I've seen today even fashion brands are re-evaluating their whole supply chain, but just at a high level, the biggest change was without a doubt the move from offline to online. And you talked, you gave us a very valid fact, which was 12% of the luxury industry was transacted online. It's important to know that, first of all, this was a 2019 number. And even pre-COVID, this number was going to 25% by 2025. So, e-commerce and the online channels growth was always predominantly the biggest and the growth factor of the industry. So from that sense, it was not a surprise. What happened is there was clearly an acceleration. Based on the most recent numbers today, in 2020, we are expecting the online share of luxury, the personal luxury goods industry, to have increased to 23%. So almost a double the share. And the Bain and Co, who are one of the companies that really do extensive research on our industry, have revised up their share of, or their view of the online share by 2025 to 30%. But it's important to note that this was not new, and even today when we kind of talk about online and offline, I think what else also important to note that pretty much almost all today the offline luxury transactions are online, are impacted by online. So it's when we talk about these numbers, is really where the last transaction happened. But a customer, the customer cycle is, or purchase journey is not necessarily one which starts offline and ends offline, starts online and ends online. So I think that is that's an important fact to note. Even if people shop offline, it's very important that there is an online representation, whether through their own websites, their social media channels, and whatnot. Now, what Farfetch has done, I talked a bit about the people, but I think just to kind of go back to 13 years ago when Farfetch was created as a platform for the luxury industry. And at the time, it was, what Jose, our founder, had, there's all these beautiful boutiques around the world. And these guys are traveling around the world, discovering the best brands. But these people were always limited by one, investments to have a sizable online business, but also in general, even by the traffic that comes in. So even if you're the highest traffic point in the world, whether it's the Champs-Élysées or in Dubai Mall or whatever you want to call it, you're always limited by this traffic. And by creating a platform in this industry, we are able to connect them to customers in almost 200 countries around the world, with a localized experience around the world and whatnot. So going back to this DNA of our creation, what we said, and what happened at the time is a lot of our boutiques were obviously heavily impacted by the COVID crisis in terms of like the traffic coming to the stores. But for almost not all of them, but a lot of them, their stores were closed. So at some point, Farfetch was their only channel to sell. And when you look at the fashion business, you have the department stores, you have the brands. When we talk about the multi-brand boutiques, these are usually family-owned businesses across many generations. And for many of them, their dreams can go shatter when it comes to that. So what we did is we really went back to this DNA, and we created a campaign called Support Boutiques. We actually changed our whole messaging. We stopped all our usual brand marketing calendar, and we really focused on them. So we brought them, left, right, front, center. Our social media campaigns were about them. We even made a whole campaign to support boutiques, where we asked them to drop their prices a little bit, so that to make a promotion, so that customers around the world can be incentivized to buy luxury fashion. At the same time, we reduce our commission by that same exact percentage. I think that is one of the big things that happened when we did online. I think the other important thing, which is again not a relatively new thing, is the transformation in offline. And people call it digital transformation, omni-channel transformation. I think you can call it just transformation. And as you know, we've always had our store of the future vertical. Chanel, we had a partnership with Chanel. We still have a partnership with Chanel, where we are their technology partner to really augment this offline presence. And just recently, we just signed a very exciting partnership with Alibaba, with Richemont, and with Artemis, who are the parent company of Kering. So really join alliance to create this new thing called luxury new retail. This is not so much of a consequence of the crisis. This was something which has always been happening. But we believe that we've really doubled down there. And we believe that online is going to keep on growing and growing and growing, but also the offline sector has to really transform itself in this present time, which is why we joined up with two of the largest and the most technological savvy companies in the world, the Alibaba and the Farfetch, but also two of the luxury experts, the most renowned groups in the world, which are the Richemont and Artemis, which is Kering.
Why I mentioned this at the beginning is because you're really operating in a really powerful online platform in a sector that it's more closed, that was actually more closed to those changes of going from offline to online. So that's why we thought it would be great to give advice to these smaller businesses who are maybe now trying to divert their sales more to online than to offline. You mentioned one of your initiatives, Store of the Future. I read there about localizing your content, for example, in the MENA region. You've implemented quite a few very impactful strategies across the board to make Farfetch what it is today. So maybe for those who are now starting their online shop, any advice when it comes to, or their online presence, right, in general, and they're a business. What would be your advice? What first to focus on? What are the main points? Especially maybe as I'm telling you, you are in the sector that was quite averse, I would say, to going online.
Yeah, it's a great question, and you know, I think also when you look at the luxury industry, it's been across the board. I mean, obviously, depending on the brand and the retailer, I think in general, it's not just small, but even the big. People were quite late when it comes to this digital transformation. I think from one side, you have this, as you're calling some people who are, and I'll talk a bit more about that, about people saying that luxury cannot be experienced online, and something that happens in the store. A lot of other people have been basically also kind of going through their digital transformation, launching new websites. So and that's not to say, I mean, some groups, and again, there's no such thing as saying that every brand needs to be online. You could have a strategy which is only offline. You can have a strategy which is only online, which has a lot of success as well. I think it really depends on your brand. But, you know, some people were like still launching their e-commerce websites in the big markets. So, you know, then COVID came and they were like, okay, let's say MENA is a region which was potentially not at the top of the priority of the regions. If you are starting right now, you would probably start in China and the US, which are the two largest luxury markets, never mind Europe and whatnot. So going to my first point, like, and I think that's something which is very important. You know, the online and the offline in the luxury space, they cannot be the same. Why is that? I mean, and you know, I talk to a lot of my friends and they tell me like, you know, I'm buying an expensive T-shirt and you know, what if I want to try it, want to return? Obviously, part of online is to give this level of service and these conditions for people to feel comfortable to buy something. So, for example, we offer free returns. So you don't have to worry about your size. Also, we spend lots of lots of investment, lots of R&D in artificial intelligence regarding sizing. Offline, you might not need to do that because a person can just try it. While online, we try to predict size based on your purchases of other brands. And one thing which is quite special about our industry is, if you probably experienced it, you could be a size large in one brand, but it could be something different. We have all these different cuts and whatnot. So this is the power of artificial intelligence. But when you talk about luxury, you know, an offline luxury is a very different. You know, you're talking about a store, the marble, the woods, the sales people greeting you, offering you, you know, whatever it is. But the online luxury experience does not have to be that. We cannot have marble on a website or any of that. I think what some people, probably some of them got them early on and some not so much, is the fact that there is a luxury online experience is not the same as the online. So for example, you know, our level service. So today you can, when you shop on Farfetch, your item will come from any country around the world. It could not, sorry, from over 50 countries around the world. And we ship that just in a few days. We only offer express deliveries. This is potentially something that is in the Middle East that not every e-commerce player will offer, right? We even deliver all the way to a yacht, right? So that is an online presence. The level of work in the imagery that we put, the experience that you have, the seamless that we try to give you. So an online luxury experience is something that, you know, we're trying to keep this like level of luxury, but it's not really translated in the offline component, the marble and the in-store experience. But there is a different level of experience that you can expect on a online luxury website than a regular luxury website. And it's not because we're better, it's because we're in the luxury space. So you don't necessarily have to ship. So if you're talking about shipping an electronic, which is low price, low margin, you cannot necessarily ship it free in 2 days around the world, unless the item is available in the store. So I think that is one. Now, when it comes to a new brand and even a large brand about what to do online, I think, first of all, it really depends on the brand's strategy. As I said, I'm not here to tell you what you should do, and there's nobody that should tell anybody what they should do. You should really have a strategy about, where you want to have your distribution, whether you want to have your own website. I think there are some kind of common things you need to have. I think today it's very important to have your own online representation. Now, this doesn't, and it also depends on what degree you want it. So, for example, having your own Instagram account, having your own website as well. But when you talk about your own websites, and I'll give you some examples, it also depends on what are your intentions. Are you trying to maximize your brand sales through a website? Then I will tell you about all the challenges that you will face. Mm-hmm. But if you're trying to just have a representation so that you can have a coordinated marketing strategy, so when you do a Instagram campaign, you have a link that goes there and people get to check out, fair. I think what's important to note, and I'll give an example with one of our Farfetch platform solutions partner, which is our white label division of Farfetch, where we offer end-to-end e-commerce solutions to other brands and boutiques around the world, is that it's, technology and e-commerce is not easy, right? To be able to serve a global customer around the world, there's lots of work to do. At Farfetch, we're almost 5,000 people. We have offices in every region of the world. So when you talk about logistics, the whole network to it you have to build. You want to talk about payments, every region, unfortunately for all of us, obviously there's Visa and MasterCard, but even in China, for example, there's, you have to be on WeChat Pay and Alipay. You want to talk in Russia, you have to be on different platforms. So, having this payments gateways around the world, localized experience, as in, what type of content people do, the weather, the customer preferences, this is a lot of work, let alone the state of innovation. Now we're talking about virtual try-ons. We're talking about, smart searching, visual search, and there's lots and lots of stuff which is going to happen. So it's very important also as a brand to also acknowledge that, we are a technology company. Our role is to really provide a platform for the industry. So for example, Harrods, which is one of the most iconic department stores in the world, everybody knows them, one of the largest as well. They've partnered with us for us to kind of support them in their e-commerce solutions. And today we power the Harrods.com website, and we also provide them as well with augmented technology for their stores. So it doesn't mean that when you're going to be online that you have to kind of go there, do it yourself. I mean, it's really up to you. And again, it depends on the maturity and the life cycle of the brand. I think it's just also important to note that having a website is probably an easy thing, but being at full potential is almost an impossible thing when you are doing, the brand building, the creation and whatnot. So it's important for an entrepreneur or a brand or even a large brand to really rethink their strategy. And today we are talking to, the biggest brands and the biggest retailers in the world just because of that. It's about focus. We're focused on technology, and sometimes that's not necessarily what everybody should do.
Mm-hmm. It's perfect. So if I could summarize, basically, know your customer journey to a detail, right? I think that's what was the first piece of advice about. And the second, basically, there's so many dots to connect, but focus and get to know what's your brand strategy first, and on that basis decide. Okay, thank you. So how do when smaller brands approach you, what are the main learnings that you see with them?
It's a good point, and I think again it's also about every brand has a natural and has a cycle that they need to go through.
If you allow me, just to add, Farfetch is such a powerful global platform, but we want to use your knowledge and experience and insights to help those smaller ones who don't have Farfetch behind them. So basically, that is what I'm trying to.
Yeah. I think, and I have these talks a lot, and part of the value of Farfetch is that, by connecting ourselves to all the the amazing multi-brands around the world, we are basically, they are the guys who are curating and discovering these brands. So I think it's important to say, when I talk to brands, like, being necessarily on Farfetch or being on if you're not a luxury brand, let's say, on Amazon or on Alibaba, Tmall, or on Taobao, or whatever it is, does not guarantee you success. And I think, having online representation, you can just imagine the amount of websites, the links that exist around the world today does not really guarantee success. So I think it's very important to go through this process. So I can talk about luxury. We can talk about a different issue if you want, but talk about luxury. Today, luxury brands, when you're creating a luxury brand, the best and most efficient way to be discovered today, I mean, you can go in with a big investment, and I'm not going to talk about that. Obviously, you have some brands, for example, like Fenty, right? So, which was created by Rihanna. I mean, she's a new brand, but she's coming with a huge leverage, a huge customer base, and it's kind of a different scenario for her. But if you're just an entrepreneur and you're starting from scratch, it's important to follow an organic cycle. And I think this applies to every industry, but in the luxury industry it is. So what I would always tell them is that, and I give the example of Off-White, which is a brand which is part of New Guards Group, which is part of the Farfetch family. New Guards and Virgil himself, they were discovered by a boutique in Italy, right? So that was the first step, is that you have to go through the boutiques. The boutique owners around the world are the guys who are traveling, meeting these new designers, and it's their job really to sit there and curate and discover the next brands of the world, the next Off-White. Now, one of the new ones, for example, is in Anushka as well. And there's many, many, many examples. But the point is that these brands did not necessarily blew up from day one. They did not really go from day one. They really went through a natural cycle. The second thing is that they really focused on themselves and building a community and really be relevant to the consumer. And what you see, I look back at Farfetch and looking at the Off-White sales, it was there from day one, because the boutique the first boutique that bet on Off-White and actually even invested in Off-White at the time was on Farfetch. So automatically Off-White was selling on Farfetch. And it's amazing when you look at the graph of sales, how that happened. But what was happening is that Virgil was really focusing on building this community, on growing, and the multi-brand boutiques around the world were doing their jobs of discovering him and selling and all that. And we were doing our job of really opening up this platform around the world and allowing them to sell to customers all around the world. So, what I would say to these brands is obviously, and he had his own Instagram account, and so he did have that, but they really follow an organic level of how to reach that. And you can't really just jump the queue and to go somewhere. We can integrate every brand in the world. We cannot guarantee the success because customers need to relate to a brand more than ever, especially now with Gen Z, which is actually going to drive 180% of the growth of the luxury industry in the future. These people are much more, you have to be relevant to them, and you have to really build a community with them. These are two things which perhaps were much different to the older generations.
I think this is one of the best pieces of advice that we heard recently, because usually it's the opposite. It's like go global, think about every detail, but this is actually no, focus, be the best that you can for your community, no matter how small it might be, because there are people who might notice the quality that you're creating, and they will make you global. So really, thank you for that. What do you see going forward, 2021? What's in store for us, if anybody can predict, but in general, and what trends would you advise people to follow? What you and your team are working on, etc.
So what we see, I think, first of all, and I mean, again, this was evident from before, but now it's really evident, is that there's really been a paradigm shift in the way people shop, right? So that was relevant before, and I think, and I'll give you some, we recently surveyed customers which started shopping with us during COVID, because we wanted to understand what are their, did they shop because they couldn't go to their neighborhood store, or did they shop because or they discovered something? And the survey was super interesting, because what the findings, and there was lots of amazing findings, is that we actually found that nearly half, actually 45% of them, said that they will continue to do more of their shopping online. Now they've grown accustomed to it. And 23% said that now they'll be doing most of their shopping online. Now they're accustomed to it. So I think, you can call it an inflection point, whatever it is. I personally think it happened before, but clearly now it's more evident than forever. Now, there's going to be lots of, and again, technology moves super quickly. I think what's is today to really take everything into perspective, right? And when we talk about this online, for example, if an entrepreneur here wants to open a marketplace and all this, right? It's very important to understand like what are the differences. First of all, from a marketplace perspective, but also from a consumer perspective, right? I think always when I talk a marketplace is on paper a great business because you don't have to really buy something, you're connecting people. But it's very important to know that your big customer is this is the supplier, the boutique. And I strongly believe that when we say we want to shop online, and for the same reason why we are saying that we are adding value to the supply partner, there needs to be a compelling advantage to that. So let me explain that. Today, if shopping online is just about convenience. So for example, you're just, and by the way, this could happen. I don't have a crystal ball, but today when I think about online for me, especially in the luxury fashion, I think of it maybe a bit differently. Farfetch is not a marketplace of, let's say in Dubai, of the Dubai boutiques. We have a service called F90, which we deliver in 90 minutes if you want something urgently. But we strongly believe that, convenience and this shopping from home is not necessarily our competitive advantage and what we really want to do. So from our side, shopping online has to be this extra value. So you could go to the mall and you could try your own, you could try your size. But when you go online, if you're just going to be that, you could be that experience that just kind of brings you that item that you tried to your thing, to your home. But what we want is that by aggregating the world's best boutique, that you're actually able to shop the world's best fashion, the most curated fashion from around the world. All these amazing, for example, creators in Tokyo are sitting there and they're finding this, discovering these fashion brands there, and we're bringing it to that. That is an experience that you cannot find offline. No matter how big the mall is, you will never be able to match it. It's very important to really highlight that. And the same thing, you have to go to the other side. What are you adding for the supplier? Again, if you're just eating from their pie, I think at some point, either a competitor will come in and undercut you in commission, or they will kind of stop working with you because they'll just say, okay, I would rather not sell to a marketplace, take that commission to myself. But again, for us, one of the biggest value that is through Farfetch is that by connecting to the Farfetch platform, you are opening up this world, selling to 190 countries. And we know that, on average, we actually represent 35 to 40% of our supplier sales. Without this added value that cannot be reached online, then this cannot happen. So I think it's very important, obviously, as the world moves more online, everything is to really go back to this sustainability of the system, which is one of online and offline. And if these things don't happen, then, the business that you're talking about will not survive. The other thing is these two worlds, right? I think, we talk a lot online, offline, and I don't want to repeat what's being said around the world, but we just cannot think of it that way. When these two worlds start fighting together, it's just going to kind of push back. And that is really the reason why it wasn't so big in the past. So this is where the augmented retail view comes in and whatever it is. And I'll just give you a few examples, right? So today, when you open your Gmail account, right? So you open your Gmail, you don't necessarily on your own computer, you don't log in, right? Because there's a cookie there that knows that Tamara just opened her Gmail account, and it gives you a better experience. Online, that is a very developed system. We don't want to talk about cookies and whether they're expired or not and whatever. Let's not get into the tech part, but irrelevant of that, there is this data capture around you, which is done. We're talking only about good data. Like we don't collect data to sell, and we don't do any. Obviously, we follow GDPR rules. The data we collect is to give you a better experience. The problem is around the world today is that when you go to the offline, this data capture stops, and this integration of these two worlds is stopping. You could be shopping for brand X. You could be adding to your wish list. You go to a store. Maybe and I'm generalizing, some people might have this stuff, this technology in their apps. But when you go to a store, when you walk in, they don't know who you are. They could know you if you come every day, and they know you by name. They don't know what you shopped. You can go in and you can look for an item. It takes them so much time to go and look for the size. If the size is not available, they will tell you that, oh, I'm sorry, maybe it's in another store. So you know what I mean? The offline experience is broken, I would say, from a technological and from an integration to the online basis. And the other complication is that, are you going to have 1,000 apps? Like, are you going to keep on opening app every time you walk to a store and you do that stuff? We believe that this is why we created this luxury new retail. This is why we've partnered with Alibaba, with Richemont, with Artemis, is that we believe that, we want to create this enterprise solution powered by Farfetch, using and also leveraging the know-how and the technological advance of Alibaba to really provide this platform. And we really want to stop talking about online and offline, right? These two things could be a click, whether you want to collect it at home or not. You could be shopping at home and you can select your items. When you arrive, the store manager will know who you are. Your items will already be in the changing room. If the item is not there, it will already be brought from a different store and it'll be ready for you. You know what I mean? So I think this world is kind of bound to come, and this is where we are investing. We could talk a lot more about innovation and consumer expectation changing. I give you an example. Obviously, an example in different industry, right? So, and for those of you who live in Dubai, for example, we used to call a taxi. We have to wait for 30 minutes. Now I don't even wait for more than 3 minutes for an Uber or Careem. So these things are changing as well. Lots of innovations around that side as well. But I think this merging of the two worlds is a top priority for industry and for almost every industry. It's happening as well in the other industries. When you talk about Alibaba is doing, what Amazon is doing, and what all the other brands are doing as well.
I think this was a perfect conclusion for our chat, and that is that the future is union between online and offline, basically, right? And it somehow makes the whole task much easier, because the whole division and thinking about two worlds. But basically, it is true. We are all the consumers as well, and we all have shopped in the online while standing in the shop, because it was, for example, available only online at the moment. Thank you so much, Edward. This was really a pleasure to talk to you. It was such great insights, and thank you for your experience. And I'm sure our audience will find it quite beneficial. We are moving on to the panel, and for any other advice that you'd like to ask Edward, please do contact Dtec team, and we'll be in touch with the Farfetch team. Thank you so much, Edward.
Thank you very much, Tamara, and thank you for this opportunity.